80s were a wild time. So many things that happened back then and were seen as normal feel crazy to us and like it all happened in another universe. On the other hand, a lot of it is coming back into style and the current pop culture and media landscape reflects this. There's so many remakes or reboots of movies and TV shows from the 80s or simply even modern TV shows that take place in the 80s such as Stranger Things. Would Stranger Things ever gotten this big if it took place in the modern day? No, because it's not just the story and great acting that makes the show so good. It's also the visuals, music, aesthetic, and nostalgia that adds a lot to it. And all of that is perfectly reflected in Vice City. It feels like a time capsule in its own way. Of course, it's crazy to say that you can experience the 80s through a video game without having ever lived in that period. But what you can do is experience its essence. Vice City is a hyper parody of a decade, but ironically, by being such a parody, it actually ends up representing the period it parodies really well, at least visually. Everything is over the top, the people are on cocaine, and wherever you go or look, it's all bright pastels and neon colors. This is the world Scarface and Miami Vice were talking about. I think it's sad that Rockstar Games doesn't want to go back to this era or make another GTA game set in a completely different decade. It seems like they have decided to keep setting GTA games in the modern day, which brings a lot of benefits and cool features of course, but also starts to feel a bit boring in terms of time period. Not that the stories or worlds are boring, but just the fact that it's essentially always the same modern day and also the same type of critique. GTA 4 is essentially the same parody of modern day America as GTA 5. The differences are rather subtle, even though the fourth game tells a darker and more grounded story. But none of them are as wild as Vice City or even San Andreas. With modern graphics and modern capabilities, they could create an amazing game set in the 80s again, or the 70s, 50s, 40s. As things stand right now, there's really not a lot of good games set in those periods apart from the Mafia series or LA Noire, and those also can't really be compared because they focus on completely different things. Either way, Vice City is one of the greatest games ever made, and its aesthetic and atmosphere is the reason why the franchise exploded so hard and why there is such a strong wave of nostalgia currently to be seen. Vice City is famous for a lot of things. It has a fantastic story, legendary music, lots of attention to details, and pop culture references. However, the most important aspect of Vice City and what really sells this game and makes it so unique is its aesthetic. In fact, this amazing atmosphere is the main reason why this game managed to make such a strong impression on gamers, pop culture, and the gaming industry. When it came out, no other game looked this way, certainly not this detailed, and no other game represented the 80s in such a unique way. The whole game has a neon atmosphere, from the way the sky shines with purple color at night or when the sun starts going down, to the streets being illuminated with hundreds of neon signs, lights, and logos. The cars are colorful and a lot more stylish compared to GTA 3's. The same can be said about the NPCs walking the streets. Depending on the neighborhood you're in, you will see different types of people and vehicles. If you're in the Ocean Beach area, the cars and pedestrians will be more luxurious and rich. You'll see more Ferrari or Bugatti inspired cars as opposed to the poorer and cheaper ones in the downtown or industrial area. Neon lights and colors are everywhere. The cars are either yellow, red, purple, or green. The buildings shine like rainbows, and the pedestrians couldn't be more different from each other. Vice City is a very colorful game. Being this colorful, it manages to capture the spirit of the 80s and Miami perfectly. Even the weapon icons are heavily stylized and a mix between purple, yellow, green, and orange colors. Same goes for your health, time, and money status. Walking down Ocean Beach or any street will give you the feeling of experiencing a beautiful work of art. This game brings an entire decade to life and interestingly did to modern pop culture what Miami Vice did to the 80s. Ocean Beach in particular is probably the most iconic area in this game and in the real Miami. No matter where you look here, all buildings feel perfect for screenshotting. Another aspect of Vice City that I absolutely love is the purple glow the sky has at night and certain certain times during the day. It's incredibly atmospheric. You can imagine people just sitting here looking at the sky and draw paintings of it. It has a very movie-like feeling and fits perfectly. This adds so much atmosphere and gives the game a certain relaxing vibe. Even though this place is riddled with crime and murder, it looks like a paradise, a place you could imagine taking a vacation to. Which is exactly how Miami was back then and is still now, and what Scarface and Miami Vice were all about. Vice City embodies them in its looks. No matter where you turn, everywhere is some kind of reference to these movies and TV shows. The reason there even is such a thing as Stranger Things should in large parts be attributed to Vice City because it brought the 80s and all that glam of the decade back into the mainstream. Driving down the neon-lit streets at night while listening to In the Air Tonight or Self-Control or Billie Jean is an experience that no other game will give you. It makes you feel like Tony Montana or Sonny Crockett. If you thought that the movie Drive popularized the night drive experience or aesthetic, then you're wrong. It was Vice City. Drive itself took almost all of its atmosphere and aesthetic from this game to the point of it feeling like a movie about a GTA character. No GTA movies exist, but Drive is probably the closest thing, at least to a Vice City inspired modern movie. Even the poster of Drive has similarities with this game. The entire game plays like it was recorded on a VHS tape. You can't shake the feeling like you're seeing a heavily stylized 80s movie or experiencing nostalgia in its purest form. It is clear that Vice City took heavy inspiration in the way it looks from Scarface and especially Miami Vice. A lot of people seem to think that Scarface had the biggest influence on this game, but I'd say it's a lot closer to Miami Vice. The way certain NPCs look, like the Haitian and Cuban gang members, they look exactly like two characters from the Miami Vice pilot. Two detectives that try to arrest you when you get a 3-star wanted level, coming up in a Ferrari and wearing white suits. Miami Vice was insanely successful back in the 80s and is probably the most important modern TV show ever made, as it changed the way TV shows were made in general. The impact that show had on pop culture and even fashion can still be felt to this day. Vice City, interestingly enough, despite being heavily inspired by Miami Vice, did the same thing for modern audiences. It revolutionized gaming. It helped turn GTA into a massive franchise, which at this point is the most successful and influential gaming series ever made. Vice City completely changed the perception of video games. Sure, you had other games that were influential within their own genres, but it's Vice City that really pushed things in a mainstream direction. No other gaming franchise received this much attention. Think about this. Do you know any other game that had as many controversies and as much media coverage as GTA? Even politicians and questionable lawyers tried fighting this franchise. And it all comes back to how this game is structured and how it looks. What I love about Vice City and GTA games in general is that no area looks the same. They are all distinct from each other, and the same can be said about the vibes of each game, especially the older 3D ones. For example, if you play the GTA trilogy, you will notice how GTA 3 has a very dark, grey and depressing atmosphere. It's constantly foggy or rainy, most cars look bland and boring. Vice City, on the other hand, is full of neon purple, green and other shiny and bright colors. NPCs are wearing pastel suits and clothes and it's a lot more sunny. Even when it rains or gets cloudy, it still feels more upbeat and fun. The atmosphere is just very party-like. And such observations can be made about all other GTA games. San Andreas, for example, has 3 distinct areas, and if you're in Los Santos, you will see a much stronger orange hue to reflect the feeling of Los Angeles. Rockstar Games are masters when it comes to making the worlds distinct and unforgettable. Even if you don't like a certain GTA title, you will never have a problem in telling them apart because they are so distinct. This even counts for games such as Red Dead Redemption, where I can easily tell the difference in atmosphere and vibe of these two. This game is full of pop culture references and Easter eggs. The GTA franchise is known for this, and it might not seem like anything special in this case, but back when Vice City got released, this was not done by a lot of games and the GTA games weren't known for it either. Sure, GTA 3 laid the foundation for what would come later and already had plenty of Easter eggs and movie references, but it was Vice City that revolutionized this and caused the franchise to explode. Playing Vice City, you will quickly notice that the entire game is heavily inspired by movies and shows such as Scarface, Carlito's Way, or Miami Vice. These are the most prominent ones, but of course there's hundreds of references to other movies such as Beverly Hills Cop or Rambo. It would take hours to break down all the inspirations that can be found in Vice City, but really, Scarface and Miami Vice are the most prominent ones. Their prominence and influence on Vice City is so strong that not only are there almost one-to-one copies of locations from those movies that you can find in-game, it's also in the name and entire atmosphere and vibe of the game. Vice City is not called like that randomly. It's clearly a nod to Miami Vice, a TV show that had massive influence on the 80s and is one of, if not the most important crime drama ever made. This influence has clearly inspired Vice City to a point where the game probably would not have existed without Miami Vice. The entire vibe and atmosphere of this game is in large parts based on Miami Vice. The suits Tommy can wear, the way pedestrians look, such as that one NPC that is a direct visual copy of her character from the TV show. The dynamic between Tommy and Lance is very similar to the one between Crockett and Tubbs, and it's interesting to note that the voice actor of Lance is Philip Michael Thomas, the same guy who played Ricardo Tubbs on Miami Vice. This is not a coincidence. Rockstar Games did this on purpose because this game is almost like a spiritual successor to that TV show. The entire setting of Vice City is heavily inspired by Miami Vice to the point where if you get a 3-star wanted level, you'll see a white Ferrari pull up with two detectives clearly dressed like Crockett and Tubbs. But of course, it would be crazy not to mention the heavy impact Scarface had. Aside from the story having a lot of similarities and Tommy Vercetti having a similar rise to power as Tony Montana, there are locations and interiors taken straight from the movie. For example, you can find an apartment close to Ocean Beach that looks very similar to the one in the famous chainsaw scene from Scarface. In fact, inside of this apartment is a bathroom with a bathtub full of blood and a chainsaw that you can pick up and use. Another one is the mansion of Ricardo Diaz, which is clearly modeled after the one Tony Montana owned. In fact, the main office and security room looks almost exactly like the one from Scarface. These things might be standard practice today, 20 years later, but the only reason that's the case is because of Vice City and how masterfully Rockstar Games integrated these Easter eggs and references. They give the game a charm that even today few games manage to capture despite trying. In fact, the GTA franchise would have never taken off or turned into what it is now had Vice City not been full of these things and tried to tell a mostly grounded crime story, but in a video game format. This game is the reason why people slowly started taking gaming and video games as a medium more seriously, because at that point it was still considered to be childish and something children or teenagers do, but certainly not a thing to be taken seriously or capable of telling a movie-like story. Which is funny because on one hand, GTA was being heavily criticized for being too violent and not something children or teenagers should play, but then the same people would also ridicule it for being childish. Most people didn't even consider video games to be art, an opinion that has significantly died down ever since, although these people still exist for some reason. When Vice City invited famous AAA actors such as Burt Reynolds, Dennis Hopper, or Ray Liotta to voice the characters of the game, it came as a surprise and was unexpected. These were massive stars, and now you were hearing them in this thing that was supposedly only for children or teenagers. Well, it raised the curiosity level very high, and people started wondering what kind of story this game must have if it has such high-profile actors lended their voices. One thing led to another, and now 2 decades later, we still consider Vice City to be one of the most important and legendary games ever made.